Okay. So it's nice. Welcome to everyone here. Thank you for coming, joining me in this journey to lasting happiness. Are we there yet?
Yes. It's only right now.
It's right now. It's right here, right now. That's right. Yes, that's right. In every moment, we can be happy. That's excellent. It's true. So, this is the last class in the second module of Buddhist mind science, and welcome to everyone who's in the Zoom room as well. Thank you for coming. Nice to see you. So, this class, transforming the mind to cultivate lasting happiness. Cultivating lasting happiness by transforming the mind. I found it quite interesting to go through these, revisiting. And I thought, what does it mean to revisit? I'm visiting it again. And it's like everything that arises in our mind, we are revisiting something that we have likely visited before, the habit of the mind. So we are working to change the habit of the mind, to try to have our habit be what arises in the mind produces happiness, keeps us in a state of contentment. Last night I attended a teaching by Gyume Khyentse Rinpoche Losang Tenzin, who was at Vajrapani. And he said, the important thing is to keep a happy mind. If you keep a happy mind, there's no place for unhappiness to land. So if the mind is happy, you don't get buffeted by the circumstances in your life that normally would send us round the bend. But because we have a sense of contentment, then we can pause and evaluate what's arising. So when Buddha first taught, he said, life comes together with dissatisfaction and suffering. This happens in cyclic existence. So why? It's because our inner patterns and our afflictions largely condition our life. Our inner patterns, they don't have to be all afflictions, but our inner patterns that condition our life. And we have an enormous potential for well-being. The potential can be cultivated. It's not like one person told me, I'm just an angry person. That's who I am. Oh, well, when someone has that strong view, you can't really say, well, that's not true, honey. That doesn't work. So somehow, as Geshe Gelsen used to say, you teach through your actions. Be kind. Just teach that way. So that's really the crux of the matter. We want happiness, and it's possible to have it. We can have it. If we're considering the definition of happiness, and that's important to consider the definition, which is a state of well-being, contentment. Contentment is defined as ease of mind, satisfaction. So I can be satisfied even when things are not going well. I can be satisfied. I can be content. So this is something to keep in mind as we realistically look, that there are difficulties and there are challenges. But the goal in Buddhism is to discover the true causes of suffering and to eliminate them. To follow a path to true happiness, which gradually abandons the causes of suffering, gradually abandoning the causes of suffering, and then happiness ensues. So we looked last week at challenging emotions, which Buddha labels negative emotions. Why? Because they create unhappiness now and in the future. So there are seeds planted when we engage with negative emotions. But positive emotions like love and compassion can also be cultivated. And they're the focus that we want to produce for our life, for the happiness that we want. So maybe we can start with a short meditation. So if we find a good seat, comfortable position, allowing your spine to lengthen and straighten, and the body to be relaxed around this center pole. Sometimes it's useful to simply take a warm light from the crown of your head and let it gently float down through your body to scan whether or not we're holding any tension. For instance, around the eyes, the brow, the jaw, the back of the neck and across the shoulders. Let that healing, softening light flow down to the tips of your fingers. Feeling your hands resting gently in your lap. And then coming back to the nape of your neck, let that light just gently descend, shining in all directions, softening around your shoulder blades and your chest, filling it down to your mid-back, all the way to your sit bones. Let your belly be soft. Feel it receiving the full breath. Let your glutes be soft. And let the light flow all the way down your legs, past your knees, all the way to the tips of your toes. Letting go, letting go. Letting go of all ruminations about the past or fantasies about what comes next. Just being here, present, in this beautiful moment. How do you feel right now? What is your mental attitude? Bringing a sense of care and acceptance to whatever is present, even if it's challenging. Allow a sense of gratitude to arise for this very rare opportunity to be here, practicing together. And let's set an intention to be open to activating our highest potential. And feel the rhythm of our breath, effortless and natural. Observing when the breath flows in and turns and flows out again and back in without needing to change anything. The simple rhythm of life flowing through you. Relax into that. How wonderful. And if you like, you might fine-tune your awareness to a single spot, one place, either the tip of the nose or the rise and fall of the belly. Growing our one-pointed concentration, we stay for just a couple of minutes, letting our attention settle there and noticing the change in the sensation in the body as the body breathes. That's all. How wonderful. Now, become aware of those around you. And then think about all the beings in the world. And think how it is true that each one of us wants to be happy. And we don't want to suffer. So let's set our intention to activate our highest potential for the lasting benefit of not only ourselves, but for every living being, without exception. How wonderful it would be if all beings were free. Thank you for practicing. We have this really great beauty inside So we try to activate it and maintain it. In Western psychology, we often speak of emotions, but in Buddhism, the focus is on afflictions, mental states that disturb the mind and cause suffering or dissatisfaction. So what's the difference between an affliction and an emotion? What do you think?
Well, afflictions seem to be negative.
Mm-hmm.
Emotions seem to have the possibility of both aspects.
Perfect. It's interesting to note that in Sanskrit, there's no word for emotion. It's a Western concept. There's some relevance, but it's interesting to understand that it's not a universal concept. So in Buddhism, when we're talking about emotions, we're talking mainly, originally, about what's translated as afflictions. We can also have positive emotions. We can have pleasure, but is it an affliction? Only if it leads to grasping, only if it leads to attachment or aversion. This is what Buddhism says. It's not, Lama Yeshe used to say, enjoy as much as possible, dear, without grasping. That's the ticket. We don't create this neediness, this out of balance. I want, I love this, I have to have this, I need this, I need to keep it, I don't want to lose it. And it's this kind of attachment that actually doesn't allow us to enjoy the full pleasure. Trying to keep it. It's interesting. So when we have afflictions, we're out of balance. We're not creating the cause of happiness. So we have to look at that. We're creating more causes of suffering and dissatisfaction. So even pleasurable emotions can be afflictions if they lead to dissatisfaction. So that's the key. Bev.
So it's making me think about the word happiness, which always kind of gets to me. I like the word contentment better.
Okay.
Dislike.
Yes, yes.
But it to me, it's happiness is more just the word as I get it, from my karma. It's like happiness.
It's like joyful bliss.
Is
yes.
What do you call it?
Easygoing contentment. Yes.
Even.
Equanimity.
Equanimity.
Yes. Yes.
So then talking about emotions, we often see happiness as an emotion.
Yes.
But when you're talking about happiness, you're not talking about the emotion.
No, I'm not. I actually went to my dictionary because I have the same sort of proclivity to think that happiness should be and but that's not the definition of happiness. So when you look at that and you see what the definition really is, it is actually a state of well-being, contentment.
But I think a lot of people, anyway, my view. When I say happy, or when I think happy, when I hear you talking happy, when I read happy, it brings up the other side, of unhappy. The opposite of unhappy is happy, but I whenever I hear that word, I have a little,
You'd rather it was contentment, cultivating contentment.
Yeah.
Yes, it's true. It's true. Words are, and how we define words matter. And this is one of the big things about the Buddhist philosophy, which is translated for us.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't taught in English.
Right.
It's translated for us, and different translators translate different Tibetan and Sanskrit in different ways.
Yeah.
So it is true that happiness, if we take it to mean contentment.
And a lot of people, everybody supposedly is striving for happiness, but that's such a hard thing to acquire, to achieve.
if we
You know,
think
and a
it's
lot of people don't
contentment,
want contentment. It's not very,
they
doesn't
want
sound very
something
exciting.
beyond contentment.
Yeah, it doesn't sound
That's right.
so exciting, you
That's
know.
right.
It's like,
Yes,
I mean,
it's possible.
yeah, I know a lot of people who are, that's not their goal, is contentment, but their goal is happiness, you know, like the opposite to unhappiness.
That's right. Well, that state of, we could say, elevated happiness
Yeah,
is temporary. You see, we're
Yes.
looking for lasting happiness,
right.
lasting, not just momentary
Yeah.
blips
We
of bliss.
What'd you say?
We Buddhists.
I have to say that when I first was studying so many years ago, equanimity, I thought, that sounds kind of dull.
Yeah, right.
You know, that was my first. Now it's like, oh yes, but at first it was like,
Yes,
oh,
it's true. It's true.
You know, life is about the ups and downs, and
it's about
all of
really
that.
Buddhist philosophy is about discovering the truth. It's not to be on a roller coaster of going up and trying to stay up like that. It's not that.
Yeah.
It's really trying to determine what is the nature of reality, what is the nature of mind. The key to lasting happiness is understanding reality as it is. And so the idea of being content is really the bottom line. So here's a quote from Tsoknyi Rinpoche, a very well-known teacher in the Drukpa Kagyu tradition. When you recognize the true nature of mind, all habitual patterns are naturally liberated in the space of wisdom, including the ultimate habit known as samsara. Samsara, the wheel of habitual cyclic existence that causes all our suffering. The karma that drives the wheel, the three poisons, attachment, aversion, and ignorance, are actually deep-seated habits of mind. So this is what we're trying to get to, the true nature of mind, which Dujum Rinpoche said, mind, the essence of mind is empty, spacious, and pure from the beginning, like the open blue sky. Its nature is luminous clarity, unobstructed and spontaneous. And its energy, or its manifestation, is compassion, unimpeded and all-pervasive. So that's the mind. If we can come to that reality, if we can stay in that reality, this is what we're trying to ascertain. Is that the nature of my mind? Do I get a taste of that from time to time? Can I embrace that and stay longer in that state to be able to see? So this cycle of life that we experience, dissatisfaction, uncertainty, not getting what we want, getting what we don't want, losing what we love, and doing it all alone, you see. These are deep-seated habits of mind. So from the Buddhist view, everything that we do leaves an imprint on our mind. Every thought, every word, every deed. So it leaves an imprint, and this imprint remains in our unconscious mind and conditions our future experiences. It conditions us. It conditions our relations with others. So the measure of my actions, my decisions, of whether I follow an emotion or not, uses as its criteria not just how I'm feeling right now, but where does this lead? So these are important distinctions to think about, to analyze, to investigate. So, and call to mind Niels Bohr, all new experience makes its appearance within our own point of view and perception. How would we like our perceptions to be? What would we like our point of view to be? Do we want to be filled with love, compassion, joy, and equanimity? It's interesting, So What is it that keeps us from abiding in a state of contentment? Attachment, which is clinging to pleasant experiences, unable to let them go. It's a neediness. I must have this. Aversion, which is rejecting unpleasant experiences impulsively. Yes. Delusion, sometimes translated as ignorance, is defined as lacking knowledge, but it's more than that. Ignorance in this context is a misknowing. That's what His Holiness says. It's a misknowing. We think we know, but we have it wrong. Yeah. And it's interesting to note that attachment and aversion are usually based on exaggerating the qualities of the object of our attachment or our aversion. And they arise out of delusion, out of thinking that this object exists exactly as it appears. That's the module 6 and 7.
Previews.
Yeah, previews of things to come. Yes. So regulating or navigating afflicted emotions is the first step. So I would say before you regulate, you have to recognize. And that was something that Gyime Khenso Rinpoche said last night. He was talking about afflictions, really. And he said the first thing, when you've acted out of an affliction, the first thing you need to do is recognize that that's what you've done, and accept that it's a negative one, and it has the potential for negative repercussions. And so you recognize that you've done that, and you regret that you did that. So you recognize it's negative, you regret that you did that, and you apply some antidote to that, reciting mantras or do some purification practice. So this is, negative emotions are to be abandoned, but it's gradually diminishing the power of anger, for instance, and the other destructive emotions take time. And at the same time, we cultivate all the positive qualities of awakened awareness. So we're using both. We're purifying and we're perfecting. Sangye. Purified and perfected. Yes, please.
Well, it seems like then that delusion is the strongest one.
Ignorance. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's the root.
It's the root, yeah.
It is the root. Absolutely.
Brilliant. We believe the positive, we believe the negative.
Brilliant. Yes, that's exactly right. Beth.
I was just reading something yesterday about the root of ignorance. The word ignorance is ignore.
Exactly.
And so it's like we don't know we're ignoring.
We don't look.
Yeah. We just have a point of view and we don't know we're ignoring all the rest of the possibilities.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. To ignore. Yes, I think in Unbinding, the book Unbinding, that beautiful book, Kathleen Dowling Singh, it's a great book. And she speaks about if you don't look, you'll never see.
Right.
Yes, Unbinding. It's a really wonderful book. So how about, if we say anger is an affliction, but any challenging emotion that disturbs the peace of mind, our well-being, our happiness, our contentment, is an object to be abandoned. So what are examples of attachment and aversion from your life? Can you think of attachment and aversions in your life?
What isn't?
What
It is my life.
Right.
Somebody once said, I get really attached to praise. And when I don't get it at work, I feel irritated. I didn't get that praise. It's interesting. What else? Mm-hmm. Give me an example. Mm-hmm. Or, it can be attachment. Could be aversion.
Oh boy. Aversion to what's going on politically.
Political aversion.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Rinpoche talked about that a little bit last night. Mm. He had an interesting, someone asked, how can I have compassion for people who perpetuate harm.
Yeah.
And he said, from a Dharma point of view, his translator said, this is really a Dharma point of view, because it embraces past and future lives. And not everyone embraces that yet. But he said, if you think about past and future lives, that individual has helped you countless times, as well as harmed you countless times.
That's an interesting perspective.
Yeah. But also, yes, please.
Yeah, I just was reading something from His Holiness that was saying that, that he often calls people troublemakers, but
Yes.
is feeling compassion for them because they are harming others, but by their harmful actions, they're harming themselves.
That's
again
right.
In future life. Well,
Yes.
later in that
In
same
the
life,
same life,
or
sure.
in future lives, so that they're, because of that negative mind and actions that have to have compassion for them.
That's right. That's right. Yes, that's good. Also, I think in that very same vein, just to be able to see that when we lie and when we cheat and when we steal and when we kill, then that's all going to come right back to us. And we can see even in our own lives, if you lie, then nobody believes you. So your words lose their power. So these are the kinds of things that you're not going to be protected if you're harming others, or you're always going to be nervous that somebody's going to steal from you because you steal from others. So it's interesting to see how the mind works. And it's good to look at that, to investigate that, to analyze that, to see if it's true. What other attachments? What kind of an attachment do you have?
I think I have all the normal attachments and all the normal aversions. And my life is just like trying to steer between them all. And then there is a self, behind all of that.
Right.
But I'm having interesting interactions with it in recent days. And in regard to what you were saying, equanimity, that sounds pretty dull. And the phrase in my mind that's come up recently is adopting a state of enlightened boredom.
Enlightened boredom.
Still trying to define it.
Yeah.
You came up with that term?
Yeah. I did.
Yeah, right.
I remember Geshe Michael Roach, I might not have it quite right the way he said it, but it struck me like this. He said, wouldn't it be great to be able to just go down the street without constant bombardment by like and dislike?
Oh, yes. Yes.
It's just like every single thing that we look at, we have a judgment about.
Yes.
And we don't even know we're doing it a lot of the time.
That's the problem.
Asleep.
Yeah.
That's what Buddha said. He said, my disciples are sleepwalking.
Yeah.
They don't even know it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I
it
feel
is like you
half-conscious
say.
most of the time.
It's interesting to see when I was driving to the airport to pick up Kira, my daughter, yesterday. I caught myself many times holding on to the steering wheel. Actually, I was driving home, but holding on to the steering wheel on the freeway and catching myself tightly grasping it, or holding my breath, passing a big truck, holding my breath. And I would, watching my body, and I just said, relax. I can still drive in the same way. I don't have to have that kind of anxiety, that kind of tense.
Yeah.
So it's being aware of what we have in our body and our mind, because they're very closely related, into how we can be content, have ease of mind. So you can see, grasping. So attachment narrows our focus and prevents us from enjoying the things that we have with openness, because attachment wants to hold it, keep it. There was an example given of somebody on vacation, and they were having such a divine time that a couple of days into it, they started to think about going back to work, didn't want to go back to work. Could they extend the vacation? So they spent time on their phone trying to figure out if they had enough miles to get back, to change the ticket, and could they stay in the hotel longer, and instead of being present and enjoying. Attachment limits our ability to enjoy. And aversion is the flip side of that, pushing away what we don't like without even thinking. As you say, like and don't like. Don't want that? Yeah, I'll have that. It's like that. It is. So let's practice. Just briefly. Just coming into quiet, centered space through the power of turning our attention to our breath in a relaxed state. Perhaps just a couple of deep breaths and letting go, and feeling the body on the seat in a sense of stability and groundedness. Being here now. And as we sit comfortably, relaxed and feeling at ease, perhaps notice any sensations in the body. And whenever any thought or emotion arises, simply acknowledge it. Oh, I'm feeling irritated, or I'm frustrated, or I'm anxious, or jealous. Whatever emotion comes, just look, and we'll just sit quietly and see. For 2 minutes. And try to understand now why it's there, without any judgment. Staying with open awareness and equanimity, observing an emotion without being carried away by it. This is our analysis, our investigation. And if nothing is coming to you from this moment, perhaps you remember a recent emotion. And analyze. Where did it come from? Was there attachment or aversion? Or both? Somebody want to share what came up for them? You.
So I recently made an effort to help someone, a family member, and I found that the good intention and what I thought was good activity that I was participating in produced what I would call no result at all, and no change in behavior on the part of the person that I was worried about. Why was I worried about him? I don't know. Maybe that's attachment. Am I supposed to be indifferent? No, that's not right, because you're supposed to be becoming enlightened to help every being. And how do you help every being if all they do is nothing and you try to help them? And so it's just, you asked, is it attachment or is it aversion? It's aversion that comes from attachment. So now I have a crummy feeling from the experience.
Uh-huh.
And it makes me just want to say, well, the hell with those people, that person and other people. There's too much trouble. And if they're not going to listen, I can't do anything about it. So I'm attached to having things be the way I'd like them to be. I'd like this other person to be happy. I'd like the people in politics to not be doing the stupid things they're doing. And I feel I'm attached to that, and I feel bad. I have an adverse reaction to feeling that I'm incapable of doing anything about it. That's the short answer.
Good. Who else?
Well, this is a little odd, but because of what we talked about earlier about the root of it being ignorance, I started thinking, my mind went somewhere like, well, if attachment and aversion are not real, we're just wandering around in the weeds up here, when the real thing is happening at a different level. It's at the level of pure consciousness. And if that's the case, then discussing attachment and aversion is just wandering around in the weeds. Does this make sense?
Yes, absolutely. It makes perfect sense. Ben? It's true. It's true. Then what is it that doesn't allow us to stay out of the weeds? Do the weeds arise?
Habits of thought.
Habits. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Habits of thought.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's like batting away habits of thought. 24 hours a day.
Yeah. 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 Adeline.
Robbie,
Yes.
did you want to say something?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, great. I was thinking about, like, I was really preoccupied with, like, the week coming up, because I have work tomorrow, so I'm like half here and half preparing for the week, and it bums me out because I'm like, oh, my weekend's over. So it just like puts this like kind of circle of negativity, and kind of like I'm missing out on being home now.
That's right. That's like being on vacation and spending your time trying to keep the hotel room.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I understand completely. Yeah. Thank you for sharing, Robbie. Yeah. Good. 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 Adeline, you had your hand up.
Well, I'm stuck a little bit over here with the whole concept of what is affliction and attachment and aversion. I'm a little confused. Whenever I've thought about affliction or attachment, it's not clear to me what that is.
Well, the definition of an affliction, the textbook definition of an affliction, is a great suffering. So when we have a mind that's consumed by anger, for instance, it's a great suffering.
Okay.
There's a quote in the book. It was a debate between ignorance and wisdom. And on the inside cover of it, there was a quote from Chandrakirti, which said that realizing with awareness that all faults, which is defined as failures to do the right thing, all faults and afflictions, great sufferings, arise from the view of the transitory collection. I'll explain that in a minute. Arise from the view of the transitory collection, and recognizing the self as the object, yogis try to negate the self. So it's not just the self of the person, but it's the self-existence of the object to which we are attached or averse. You see, we're attached to what we see because we think that the appearance is reality itself, which it is not. It is colored. The appearance conventionally exists, but it exists by labeling it like this. It's a transitory collection. It's a collection of parts that is constantly changing. So typically when we talk about the transitory collection, we're talking about the 5 aggregates of the person. So when we meditate on how the person is changing, we meditate on those 5 aggregates. So there's the body, the form, there's feelings, perceptions, karmic formations, and consciousness.
So we meditate on each one of those things, and we see actually that every single aspect of this being that I think is somebody, Elaine, my very own Oz, exists in the way that I believe she exists. But in fact, she's a constantly changing entity. But I label her, and it is that idea of permanence that trips us up every time. Because everything is impermanent. Everything is changing. Everything. Even the things that we would very much like to be able to have a weekend and stay and let that weekend be longer, Robbie. Yes, longer weekend, much longer. And then maybe we get bored with the weekend, you see. This is the thing. Everything is changing and everything is interdependent. So it depends on multiplicity of causes and conditions. Everything comes together and everything falls apart. I remember having a teaching from Kala Rinpoche, this amazing Lama back in the 70s. And apparently I heard that most of his talks, he begins what's called the 4 endings. So those 4 endings, I remember because I put an acronym to them, and it's CRMB, and I call them the crumbs of life. So it is collecting ends in dispersing. Rising ends in falling. Meeting ends in parting. And birth ends in death. But it is the habit of our mind to create permanence, self-existent permanence of what appears. And because of that, what appears, because of the habit of our mind, we have habits of attachment and aversion. Very sensitive here. Trying to make it. Oh, that's because it's down here. Sorry. Hold on. There. Much better. Okay. So it is because we grasp onto the object as having a self-existence, to be exactly as it appears, then we're either averse to it or attached to it. But in fact, since it has no solid self-existence, we don't have to be attached or averse. We can see, we can use our wisdom and analyze whether it's true or not what we believe. And if we're aware and we catch the emotion as it arises, we can say, whoa, hold on, pause. And then use wisdom to determine how to behave. So it's a process, right? It's a process. So we're going to take a 5-minute break and then we're going to come back. So try to, in this break, try to be aware of what's arising in your mind. Be aware. Just for 5 minutes. We're going to come back in 5 minutes. See what's happening. I'll be back.
We might.
We weren't very.
How cute. It's funny. Were you mindful?
We're mindful about sharing things.
I'm mindful about your conversation. That's good.
Not mindful about being mindful.
No.
No.
Indeed.
That disappeared
That's
really
all right.
quickly.
That's all right. It's actually good to have communion during breaks as well.
We were talking about impermanence, though, and change.
Yes, we were
Because
talking
of
about
Sharon.
examples of what
Sharon,
we've been talking
what
about.
Sharon
Yeah.
posted.
Yeah.
Did you see?
No.
Oh, a photo of her and her daughter. This is a friend of ours whose grown daughter is quite tall, and Sharon's not that tall, and just of them now. And then she shared a picture of Sharon holding her daughter as a baby.
34 years ago.
34 years ago. And it's like it changed. You know, at one point she's holding the baby, and now it looks like the daughter's almost holding the
her up.
mother. You know,
And,
so just
yeah.
impermanence.
And the
you know,
daughter's way
where-
bigger
where
and she's
Change.
smaller.
Yes,
change and
Oh my.
impermanence. It's not, you know, who
It's-
we were
it's
is
really the
not.
truth.
Yeah.
Yes.
So at least we were talking about impermanence.
Yeah.
To be able to explore emotions without judgment. See, we're looking for a balanced approach, right? Balanced between repressing and indulging emotions. So we're exploring these concepts of attachment and aversion. What are they? You know, how do they come up? To be able to look at them dispassionately and to be able to analyze whether or not under their influence we make the best decisions. Check. You know, we just check. We say, okay, is that work? Is that the best? So we're looking for this balanced approach, and how can we work with emotions? So there's repressing and there's indulging. I think, you know, you will find that neither one of those are useful. So some practical strategies for emotional transformation include reappraising, taking a second look. You may not be able to reappraise when you're in the heat of it, but afterwards you can say, oh, was it good to follow, to use that emotion as the catalyst for my action? We can look. And in cultivating positive emotions, you see, the more positive emotions we cultivate, the kinder, more joyful, more compassionate, and more wise that we are, then it's like there's no place for these afflictions to land, to grow. There's no fertile ground. They just don't have a spot. It might arise, but it doesn't have a place there's not a place to write the rest of the story, you know, to keep spinning and write another chapter in that one, no matter which one it is, attachment or aversion, either one, you know. So these two extremes of repression, which is like pretending the emotion doesn't exist, it's not there. My daughter recently came back from a month-long meditation course in Nepal, and she said one thing that she found very interesting was in their discussion group that they were talking about anger, and she was thinking she didn't have it. She said, I didn't, one thing I found is that irritation is anger. And I didn't know that. I always thought I wasn't a very angry person, but irritation arises, and that's a subset of anger. So she found that quite fascinating. Anyway, she had a very good trip, and that's excellent. So happy. And the other one is establishing ethical boundaries for ourselves. So this is, we'll talk a little bit about that. So we do engage in meditation practices to become more aware, to become more loving, more kind, and to support healthy emotional regulation. So the two extremes of repression, pretending they're not there, and indulging, which is just letting our emotions control us, neither one is a useful way. So what do you think? Is it better to just ignore our emotions? Like if anger is there, is it better to ignore it, you know? Bev.
Always lost to say, sorry.
No, it's good.
So I work with preschool. I never had kids myself, so I haven't had to deal with a lot of stuff that you parents have had to deal with and gotten much better at, hopefully. But anyway, I work with 3 and 4-year-olds, and well, one thing I've noticed is that as I've gotten older, in some ways I've become more irritable, but because I like things to be convenient these days, you know, and kids aren't always convenient. But the other thing is that I can transform it so much more quickly than I ever could. You know, with those kids, I just go, he's only 3 years old. and it just disappears.
Yes.
You know, it
Mhm,
just
mhm.
disappears.
Exactly.
It's amazing.
That's
And
great.
then considering irritation and attachment and aversion.
Right.
You know,
Mhm.
so which comes first? And sometimes it feels like the irritation. It's not the word I'm looking for, but I'll use it. It will arise, but it arises because of attachment.
Exactly. Precisely.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel attachment first. I feel irritation first, but that definitely comes from attachment to wanting things to be a certain way.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so when
Yeah.
you really have an opportunity to look at that, normally
Exactly.
you wouldn't look at that, but through the power of investigating and exploring and analyzing, wait, okay,
Yeah.
yes, that's really excellent. Yes, I had an experience for the first time recently of anxiety. Just arose, and I thought, wow. There's a hum in the air, I think a political hum. And so there was that, and there were some other incidences in my life, and I just, all of a sudden, I had this experience, which I labeled anxiety because it was I'm feeling anxious. It didn't last very, I just sat. Then I sat. I always say, take it to the mat. And then I sat. Came to my senses, so to speak. But it wasn't until the next day that I looked at that, because as you say, what comes first? What is anxiety? Anxiety is fear. Fear that things won't go the way I hope they will go. And that's future thinking.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
You see? So it's just to look at that is wisdom. To be able to look at that gives you an opportunity to make different choices.
To actually work with our emotions as opposed to repressing them, to ignoring them, to actually acknowledge that they exist, and then to look at why. What's their root? As you say, Sharon, what's the root? Mm-hmm. What's the root? And when we go there, and if we've had some experience of mind and understanding that, holding on to something that's painful is ludicrous. Why bother? Just
a habit.
It is, yes. Yeah. Indulgence isn't helpful either. Indulging in our anger, acting out of anger is also completely unhelpful, because we get carried away, and then we say things, we do things, and we escalate whatever has created our angry mind, anger emotion in the mind. So we feed the story. We feed the story. We say, yes, yeah, I should be angry. This is wrong. I'm right, and I should be angry. But if I look at anger as an emotion to be motivated by, it doesn't mean, and I think, Bev, you mentioned this, wrath, being wrathful. There's a difference between being wrathful and cutting something right now because there's a need, and being angry. Those are two very different emotions. You have to check and see. You're not going to let your 2-year-old run out in the street, and you may have to run and yell and grab. But it doesn't come from anger. It comes from love, wanting to keep them safe. So we look, we check. So from the point of view of an angry emotion, it's maybe not the best motivator for our actions. But there's a middle way. So by acknowledging, His Holiness says, acknowledging prevents suppression, and working with them avoids indulgence. We work with them not to indulge them. So reappraisal is one of the techniques or the strategies. So it's looking at the situation from a broader perspective. So looking at it, the emotion's not permanent. It changes. It doesn't stand alone. It's interdependent. It's dependent on a multitude of causes and conditions. And it doesn't have any self-sufficient essence. You can't find it. because it's conceptually contrived. It comes from words and thoughts. You can't find the essence of that emotion. So we can see from the effect of our actions that under their influence, they're not the best motivators. So we can also then determine the importance of cultivating healthy emotions, nourishing compassion and joy and love and wisdom, so that they're the ones that are appearing in our world. Those are the flowers. I often like to think of it as practice is like planting a garden. You know, you put the seeds in for all the beautiful flowers that you want, but you have to keep pulling the weeds so that the flowers grow. And then you water it and you give it sunshine. It has sunshine. And eventually those flowers actually create shade that doesn't allow the weeds to grow. I thought it's good. If I can remember that, you know. So we can pause. That's another strategy, is pausing, using awareness of the breath or another object of attention. You know, just knowing. First you have to know that anger and attachment, aversion and attachment, are not to be cultivated. You have to accept that. We have to accept that. We have to see that every time we cultivate that, it plants seeds to have it ripen again. So this we have to investigate to determine whether that's true or not for ourselves. We analyze and we investigate. Buddha said, don't believe what I say just because I said it. You have to investigate, you have to explore, you have to examine until you have no doubt in your heart how the mind fabricates its experience of the world. So it's up to us to check. Because then when we check and we see, aha, it becomes our truth. And then we follow that because we can see that it's true. You know, first, when we're using these mindful strategies, right? So we have to pause in order to become aware and to create some inner space so that we can look and we can acknowledge that this is anger. And I'm under the control of it. And it's pretty powerful. But do I want to go there? So these calming, mindful strategies. First, we notice the sensations in the body. How does it feel when you're angry? Is it a pleasant experience? You know, you say, oh. Or anxious, you know, I have fear. Yeah, it's fear. But if I look in the moment, in this room, if anxiety is arising, fear comes from something that's going to happen to me, the future thought. So in this moment, I'm okay. I'm okay. So we try to understand, why do I have fear? Why do I have anger? We look for the cause. Because the body responds first. You know, first it's like, and then you look. But we have to be aware, you know. We have to know also how the emotion is reflected in our body and look at it for what it is. You know, to actually feel the sensation. To stop. Feeling anxious, stop, pause. What does that feel like? And I think personal experience is simply by looking. It can't be found. Just kind of the feeling in the body. Doesn't mean that it won't come again. But it's possible to look, to be open, to have an openness with equanimity, not judging, this is bad, I don't want this, I got to get this away. But just pausing to navigate through. So it's important to have an approach where we create this mental space of acceptance and care. There's a reason, you know, accepting it has appeared and I care about this person that I call me. You know, I want myself to be happy as well. The attitude is important in how we deal with our emotions. Not to suppress them and say, oh, I don't have that. I'm a Buddhist. So if we consider, we really have to take into account the importance of loving, self-love, as well as loving others, and not to have guilt arise when we actually follow an emotion, but we look and reappraise and reevaluate and determine future ways of being. And this rewires the brain. So if we consider scientifically, we have discussed this before, the executive functions of the brain, the working memory, cognitive flexibility, and inhibitory controls. Inhibitory controls. This would be our ethics. We have these controls and we maintain an ethical life. So our ability to regulate our emotions and our moral compass rely on the same neural circuitry. This is interesting. The ability to control and our morality or our ethics. This is the inhibitory control circuit in the brain. That's interesting to think about. So it's cultivated, it grows from infancy. So if any of these executive functions aren't apparent or don't appear in the mind, then you can see people who are without inhibitory controls. You can see without cognitive flexibility. It's my way or the highway. This is the way it is, and it will be. Yes.
So
Sharon. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So we're limited by our equipment,
We are.
just like we can't see in the ultraviolet like wasps can say.
Yes,
or-
yes.
So we're limited by our equipment. So how do we know, perhaps by investigation, but how do we know that we're actually getting the middle way between aversion and attachment? And I can't quite formulate the question properly. How do we know that we're heading in the right direction? Or
We're actually,
I mean, because others have done that, but maybe they have better equipment.
well, I think the measuring stick for whether or not you're successful in your practice is that your afflicted emotions are diminishing.
Well, I can think so, but maybe for an outside observer would go, not so much.
There will be, it's possible, but you will know whether you're blown by the winds of karma and delusion in every moment, or whether you have moments of lucidity and clarity and love and compassion. And you can see which one is the biggest. So you begin to see over time. And I'm not talking weeks. I'm talking years.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, it is a transformation of the mind. The mind actually transforms. The things that used to trigger you have absolutely no ability to do so. They don't even, it doesn't even come up to be triggered.
I look forward to getting there.
You can see in some of these beings who've been our teachers over time, that their joy, as Tony was remarking about Lama Yeshe during the break, that he just seemed to emanate joy, even though she hadn't physically met him in person, but through what she's heard and read and listened to. And that's true. To just be a sunshine coming into the room. And you can see, I think of Choden Rinpoche, who was just completely equanimous. There are other teachers that we have been around, people that we have met. We can see some people are much more afflicted than others. If you look at people that you appreciate being around, angry people Do angry people, do you gravitate toward the person who's yelling in the corner of the room?
No, I know.
So it's looking at who you want to be around and who you want to be like. Cultivating, it's because they have cultivated these over lifetimes that their negative emotions are diminished and their positive emotions are enhanced. And it's palpable.
This is a very optimistic practice.
It is. It is. And we can see it for ourselves too. Over time, we can see that we have more care for ourselves, more acceptance of our foibles, because we understand that they're impermanent and they're dependent and they have no essence. So we can cultivate that, and through the power of that, we can begin to diminish, not be attached. Look at what it is that brings attachment and see if you can diminish going there.
That's a good point.
Yeah. We just really have to investigate. Don't believe what I'm saying. You investigate and see if it's true for you over time. It really does make sense. These are not my words. None of what I'm saying comes from anything I know.
Yes, it does.
Every now and then I have a little dharma aha, but this comes from ancient wisdom. The yogis have been practicing this for centuries. So it has proven true, and it's being proven true in Western neuroscience, that cultivating these positive qualities leads to a happier life. They test it. I had a friend who was studying at Stanford, and he was studying psychology, and he asked me to come and have an MRI on my brain. So I came and had an MRI. First I had a test, some kind of, I don't even know what it was. They asked questions. If this happened, then would you do this, this, or this? If this happened, how do you feel? Something, some kind of, this was 20 years ago, so I can't really remember everything. But I was fascinated by, to know what the result was. I wanted to know what the result was, but it was a blind study, and I didn't get any result. I mean, they had my history, so they knew my history, but it was not, they weren't going to tell me. Let's put it that way. They weren't going to tell me. So I think it's proven true. There have been enough books written about it, and enough scientists are saying, yes, there's validity to training the mind to have a happier life. There was a time when they thought that, by the time you were 25, you were fixed. Your personality was fixed. This is the way it is now and ever shall be. But that's absolutely not true. So when somebody says to me that they're just an angry person, say, I wanted to say you're having angry episodes, but that's not your being. So we have to decide. We have this, when we're talking about ethics and our moral compass, using our moral compass, we have to make decisions to decide how we're going to be. So we decide not to be angry. And in some cases, in the Buddhist tradition, one actually takes vows not to. And in the Christian tradition, you follow the 10 commandments. And in the Buddhist tradition, you avoid the 10 non-virtues, or you cultivate the 10 virtues. So there's a boundary there. There's some guardrails. So you know that this is not something that you're going to do. And when you have boundaries for our afflictions, then by developing concentration and awareness, we can choose ethics over following a mental affliction. And our afflictions then begin to lose power because we've chosen a different path. So this really isn't about feeling guilty. We have to acknowledge that we have these. Let's face it, we're human beings. And these negative emotions do arise. So But what happens is the more we train in concentration and the more we have decided what we want to cultivate, the less power afflictions have until they become completely dormant. They simply don't arise. They just don't come. So let's explore what are the strategies that we might use. And if we explore it in more of a meditative position, we can look. So using this as strategies when we're feeling irritated or upset. Let's recognize and accept the fact that yes, irritation arises. And on top of irritation comes judgment. For myself, for getting irritated. And irritated because I'm judging something else. So sometimes we actually get angry. And we accept, okay, yes, this arises. And we've likely done things that we regret. And sometimes we justify our anger. We rely on it. So if we reflect on anger, does it have a cost? What is that cost to me? And what is the cost to others? And how does it make me feel? How does it make me act? If we can recall an experience, see how it felt and what I did and how I felt later. And what was the long-term effect? How would it feel if I could release a harmful emotion like anger and act not out of anger, but using other abilities? What if we were able to pause to see what was really true in the moment and to see how detrimental anger can actually be? To recognize how afflicted emotions make us feel and how we act under their control. What do I do, and how do I make myself and others feel? When we are angry, we feel we want to respond. Does it make sense to repress our feeling? Or might we apply an antidote? If we allow anger and verbally or physically act, we're reinforcing something that can be extremely harmful. So what else might we do? Perhaps we could remain silent. Or leave the room. Or try to put on the other's shoes and understand why they're doing this. This is doing reappraisal. Staying level-headed in the face of injustice is a stronger position where our minds have greater clarity and capacity to find meaningful directions and solutions. If we allow anger to respond, very often it escalates. And we can see this in the world around us. We do have highly evolved abilities that allow us to deal with difficulties, challenges, and even great injustices. We have seen people facing injustice with calm, dignity, and even kindness, along with the ability to forgive those who harm them. These are the abilities that we all have, and we can develop them. We begin by recognizing the harm of anger. We can see that expressing anger increases our own suffering and often increases the anger of others. There are many ways we can train, and meditation is a transformation tool. In our daily life, we can pause. Practicing patience in the face of anger is its antidote. And according to Buddhist psychology, we can prevent anger from arising in the first place. The opposite of anger is loving kindness. Because the mind can only hold one thought at a time, when mind is imbued with loving kindness, anger has no place to land. It's impossible to experience anger They are opposite mental states. If we look at our experience, this makes sense. Hold that thought. That we can train our mind. So that negative emotions have no place to land. So like Khyentse Rinpoche said last night, we need to maintain a happy mind. I think of Thich Nhat Hanh's prayer, where he said, I wake up in the morning and smile. 24 brand new hours are before me. I vow to live fully in each moment and to look upon all beings with eyes of compassion. So imagine saying that every morning. And when it doesn't arise, when Grumpy gets up, and then you look in the mirror and you remember that, then I wake up in the morning and smile. So we smile. And then just smiling at ourselves in the mirror makes some changes. Just so you can see how the mind shifts. Very quickly, the mind can shift. So the greater our attitude of loving kindness, the more difficult it is for afflictions to arise. Because there's more satisfaction in our mind. The more we're satisfied, the more we have well-being and contentment. Fostering emotions and mental states is not just reducing the disturbing ones, it's also enhancing the wholesome ones. Wholesome, constructive emotions, cultivating well-being, and reducing the impact of disturbing emotions. So developing constructive emotions is like bolstering the immune system. His Holiness the Dalai Lama said, it's bolstering your immune system. He said, love strengthens our emotional immunity to anger. Compassion prevents cruelty. Joy opposes jealousy. And equanimity protects us from attachment, anger, and apathy or indifference. We often have a tendency to focus on negative things happening around us, and there's so much negativity in the world in this moment, it feels overwhelming. So maybe these are things that we cannot change. We can cultivate empathic joy. Let's talk about joy. That's what I wanted when I first met Buddhist teachings. I want to talk about joy. So we can cultivate this empathic joy by rejoicing in goodness. We cultivate joy by rejoicing in goodness. And it's a beautiful way to cultivate a joyful mind. So maybe we practice for a little bit again. So just sit, think about this. Our body is relaxed, and just take a moment to bring in this present moment awareness right now. This open, spacious mind. Luminous and clear. Let it be there. Let it be there with an energy of compassion, this wish that no living being suffer. And let your breath be an anchor for maybe 3 cycles. Now, if you will, call to mind a person or people that we know, maybe a relative or close friend, and think of all the things they do, even small things, that bring joy to their loved ones or to other people. And think how they care for their relatives with friendship and love. Think how they try to do their best to provide them with all they need, and how hard they work for this. Think of the things that are worth rejoicing, that bring joy to families and friends. The smiles, the kind words, the jokes, and also the extraordinary things. Taking care of others in need, parents taking care of their children, people all over the world trying to bring something positive to others, being kind to each other. Think of all the joy this brings. And think about how there are people we don't know. Think about how strangers are engaging in practices that bring joy. And the many things that we do for each other with kindness and friendship. All the joy that we have experienced thanks to the kindness of others. The friendship. And all the joy that we have given to others thanks to our kindness, our friendship. How wonderful. Let your heart be glad. Without doing anything other than rejoicing, we are training to be kinder. And it's amazing to recognize that we have this extraordinary potential to bring joy. To appreciate friendship, intimate relationships, and kindness. And let's determine to bring more awareness to the joy that arises from our best potential. Imagine how wonderful it would be to live in a world filled with joy and to help create that. making our lives totally worthwhile. This is a place we can go, you know, this place of love, compassion, and joy. In the pause, to actually flip the switch. Thinking like that. Oh, yeah, you're doing this thing that's really irritating, but you've also been really cute.
Yeah.
The 3-year-old. I'm thinking of the 3-year-old. Yeah. To remember this, the fact that everything is impermanent, gives us an opportunity to pause and really do something different. Because it's a gift that we give ourselves as well, isn't it? Isn't it? It's a lovely gift. You know, Buddhism's view of consciousness is deep, and maybe it's mind-blowing. Kira said, my daughter at this retreat that she just came from, in her group, she said there were a lot of very young people, you know, in their 20s and 30s. And she said wicked smart scientists and techies and people traveling the world. And she said one of them was a scientist, and they were doing discussions on what the topic was of the day. And the topic was continuity of consciousness, past and future lives. And so they were discussing that and went around the circle. And do you believe in past and future lives? Do you believe in reincarnation? And most of them said no. There was only 2 of them that said yes. And then she said, but by the end of the month, the one who was the most vocal with all of the reasons why it wasn't true actually was on the fence. He was open to the possibility. So I think that's very interesting. So if we think that mind goes beyond the notion of this life and it's a product, beyond a product of this brain, then it includes the possibility of the continuity of consciousness. And the seeds planted in this consciousness that what we are doing affects not just this life, but future lives. It's to investigate, it's to think about, to see possibility of that. Sometimes I look at small children, and you have an opportunity, Bev, to see small children. They're so different in their view of reality, in what they protect and what they don't. To be able to see that these are propensities, these are habits that have come life to life. And it's really interesting to see that it would be so great, in my view, if we could begin to shape these little minds in love and compassion and wisdom from the time they were wee ones. I think, we have a common ground with all beings. We all wish to be happy, and we have explored mental balance, emotional regulation, cultivating positive states, warm-heartedness, and wisdom. And we've used meditation to examine these habits that drive us. Interesting, these habits, and how we might cultivate positive ones that lead to lasting contentment, happiness. So in the next module, we delve more deeply into the mind and the mechanisms that underlie the afflictions. So Buddhism goes beyond the brain, just talking about the brain and the neural pathways. But this notion if we begin to embrace the definition of mind that I mentioned before, that mind is essentially merely clear and knowing, clear awareness that's vast and spacious and pure. If we can embrace that possibility, then we begin to see that what arises in the mind is a mere cloud passing through this clear sky, that it's impermanent, that it has no essence, and that it depends on many causes and conditions. So if I think like that, then it's hard to hold on to whatever that was buffeting me here or there. And it doesn't mean that we like what's going on in the world or in our life, how we wish that we could do something, change something, make something different. I think we do, and we do small things. We do what we can. We still have to learn, I have to learn, not to get carried away by liking and disliking. Accept what I can't change. Change what I can. And pray for the wisdom to know the difference. Do the best I can with what I have. So when we can see, what was it that Tilopa said? Imagine you're studying the entire sphere of the sky. You will come to stop delineating the middle from the ends. Just so, when studying the mind, using the mind, images and feelings, emotions stop, and you come to a place beyond thought, seeing your mind's true nature. And this is the power of meditation, to be able to come to recognize this true nature of mind. And this understanding gives efficacy to the notion that everything we do, everything we think, and everything we say, we need to mind. We need to see. The mind is like a mirror. It's reflecting what's appearing, what has appeared. So when there's no object to focus on, the natural mind is clear. And we can get glimpses, mind the gap. So it's very interesting to be able to see that the mental patterns that we create, we can look at through our life, the patterns that we have created and that we've grasped that color the way we see our world. So mind and the condition of mind fabricate our experience. That's interesting. It's fascinating. So let's dedicate this positive energy that we've created. We've done some amazing work, I think. I find it useful, personally. I hope you have found some benefit creating that we can actualize our highest potential, this perfect enlightenment. May all of our actions be motivated by kindness and compassion and friendship. May we recognize and celebrate our best potential, developing it step by step, always aiming to become closer and closer to this amazing, wonderful, positive potential that we all have. So let's do that without delay of even a second to actualize this path, bit by bit, remaining aware, opening our hearts, and seeing the benefit of doing that. And if anybody has any final question, we have a few minutes. I'm happy to address them. And I also, maybe before we do that, I want to say just to give a few little things. I wanted to mention that at the end of the year, from the 29th of December to the 1st of January, I'm going to lead a purification Vajrasattva retreat at Vajrapani. It's a cleansing of all the things we wish to let go of and cultivating all the things we wish to keep. It's an ancient practice of purification, and we'll have a fire puja, burn up all the things that we wish to be free of as well. And we have a New Year's Eve sing-along. One of our members is a wonderful guitar player, and he's just fantastic, and he comes and we sing the old folk songs, the ones that we know, many of us know from, well, doesn't matter how old you are, you know. Yes. And as far as future classes are concerned, I will be going into retreat in January, a solitary retreat for the month of January, which is my habit. And then in February, I will teach the 5th module, which is warm-heartedness, at Ocean of Compassion in Campbell on Sundays.